We are here again, another match preview before our match tomorrow night against Inter Miami. It's going to be a big one. I honestly feel like Nashville was a great team. Nashville was a good test of Glass's ability to move this team forward, but I really feel like Inter Miami is going to be a bigger question mark in the play as the run-up. But we are here, Jason Longshore, John Nelson. Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Hola.
What's up?
You were both wearing international shirts. You chose the Netherlands, and I chose a sort of a controversial one for today.
I don't think it's controversial. I mean, I'm drinking a Fernet E Coke for Lionel Messi, so, you know.
There you go.
You're topical, Kel.
It is topical. It's quite topical. So, obviously, the real question I want to lead off, which is on everybody's mind, so is, when is Messi going to Atlanta?
Not till 2023 at the earliest. He's going to go somewhere big through this next World Cup. I think he could play in MLS, but not until 2023 at the earliest.
Right. And now this was one of the things, obviously, that we talked about on Soccer Over There with this whole Lionel Messi debate on whether he stays, whether he goes. I obviously was a fan of him leaving because I really feel like the club itself needs a reorientation. It needs this sort of switch and a whole redevelopment of who they are. And I feel like Messi leaving would help that. Of course, there's a lot of debate about whether he is leaving or whether this is a power move, that type of thing. Obviously, Messi's not in MLS yet, so the subject matter right now is mute since this is an Atlanta United preview show. But I thought that it was a really interesting thing to sort of bring up on the hot hour because that's the trending right now on Twitter.
Yes, it's been ridiculous all day. Argentine media has been nuts for the whole day. People are still yelling at each other. I think they're still staking out the Barcelona president's car outside of the offices. They're stopping people on the street for takes. I mean, it's madness.
There's still protests outside camp, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this is going to last until the wee hours of the morning. So it'll be a really interesting thing to follow. Obviously, it's a big talk right now about and for soccer in general. So it felt pertinent to bring it up. But let's get back to the subject matter, which is Atlanta United haven't lost a game yet in Mercedes this season. So obviously, we camped that with a 2-0 win against Nashville from this past weekend. Let's just go ahead and start with immediate gut reactions from the match, guys. What were your immediate thoughts after the game had that final whistle?
Good win. Room for improvement, but a good win. Had control of the match. Chances you gave up weren't the most threatening. You need to create a few more. It was better at the end than it was at the beginning, which is to be expected. A little sloppy at times. But overall, a good, solid win against a team that's better than they get credit for.
Absolutely. John, how about you?
Yeah, obviously, you're drawn to a couple different things, at least from my perspective. Obviously, they played Pity Martinez and Jason's. Was that technically onomatopoeia? Is that what we call that response on the second goal? Is that what that was?
What? I'm confused at the reference you're making.
Explain yourself, John.
Your reaction on air on 92.9 upon impact of the ball.
Yeah. I remember hearing a bit of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's onomatopoeia, but isn't that when you make a noise that is like the sound as a word for a sound that you're trying to emulate?
Okay, well then the excitement, the exultation.
I just yelled loud. We don't need fancy words. I just yelled loud. I thought it was going to be a good goal, and it was.
You yelled loud.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love it anytime that you break your solid composure on radio.
That was the worst one I've had.
I really honestly feel like the last one that you had was San Jose.
No, Lorenowitz in the Campeones Cup.
That's right.
But, I mean, the San Jose one was madness because, I mean, it was madness and it was 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning at that point.
Okay.
The Lorenowitz one was like, wow, that's a good goal. This one was kind of just out of nowhere. Like, it happened before I even thought about it.
Yeah. it's like getting slapped in the face by a stranger, you know, where you're just walking down the street and it's a full on 5-fingered slap, and you're like, oh, okay, that just happened. It catches you by surprise. I gotta say, my initial. I don't know. People get slapped randomly by strangers.
I was going to say, I don't recall ever that happening to me. So
have you ever been to a bar with a lot of drunk people? Hands get thrown for strange reasons. I don't
accurate.
know. But I gotta say, my immediate reaction after this game obviously was one, catching back up with my voice because I think I possibly lost it. Maybe reconnecting with my neighbors, letting them know that I am not, in fact, killing someone. And then additionally would be that I felt like the passion was back. Like Atlanta United has played with a lot of passion, and their obviously limited history, but still in their history, and players have shown what it meant to play for the Crest. And I felt like we talked a little bit about this last run-up, obviously, that a little bit of that passion, a little bit of that energy, what are we fighting for type of mentality possibly crept in when Frank de Boer was here. But I really feel like the path that we're on, and hopefully we see it again tomorrow night, but that passion with the players and what it means to play for the Crest of Atlanta United was back again. And that was something that I really latched on to. I really saw from the players, the urgency, obviously we still have a lot of things we got to work out. It didn't feel like that much of a departure from Frank de Boer, which was nice as far as his tactics and the way that the game is played, which I don't think you want to do a huge transition from one game to the next, from one coach to the next. You obviously make small adjustments, and we saw that. But it was nice seeing just the elation and the joy from these players on the win.
Yeah, I think one thing I noticed was it always felt like it was intense but controlled. You know, you look back to the last game against Columbus in the MLS's back tournament, and it was flat and then chaotic in the second half. Like, there wasn't ever control in that tournament, honestly, period. In any of the three games, you never felt like you had control of the games. This one, even early where it was disjointed, you felt like you had control, and you get the goal, and I think the control increased, and you just got more comfortable as the night went on. And I think a player who kind of demonstrated that was Mateus Rossetto. Rossetto was a little sloppy early on, just with being hesitant. I mean, sloppy in terms of quality, no, it's not fair, but hesitant is maybe the word. And as the night went on, he got more and more comfortable with trying things, with playing a little more expansively. I mean, you look back at his numbers on the night, and they were incredibly impressive. He didn't really have any major mistakes. His passing was outstanding. He pressured the ball well, which is a big part of what you're looking for here if you're Stephen Glass. That midfield trio of Rossetto, Remedi, and Heinemann all were very intense with their pressure in the middle of the park. And you compare Dallas's performance against Nashville versus Atlanta's performance against Nashville, the biggest difference is Dax McCarty and Anibal Godoy did not have as much of an impact on the game. That's because of Atlanta's midfield trio preventing them from doing so.
Right. And which was a really interesting aspect, because this is the first time we've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, he played full 90 minutes. So it was Larentowicz came on, correct?
For which one?
Rossetto?
No, he played the full 90. Jeff came on. Who did he come in for? He came on for Remedi. Remedi was out of gas at the end.
Yeah. But this is the first time we've seen a full 90 from Rossetto. So it was a real sample size of what we could possibly see moving forward. Obviously, we're talking about that midfield three. That was one of the things that I read about, obviously, with the Dirty South Soccer film review with Josh Bagriansky, talking about this whole idea of having an extra midfielder to be able to drop back, to have that shore up in the midfield. Did we feel like that really worked as far as a tactic going forward?
Yeah, but I mean, I think the thing you have to look at with early on in the season with the way Atlanta United played the 3-4-3, it wasn't two midfielders by themselves. It was four, really. It was Pitti and Barco connected with the two central midfielders. At the end, and especially in the MLS's back tournament, it felt like two different units. At the beginning, it wasn't. So you had situations where you'd have 4 versus 3. This case, you had 3 versus 3, and it did provide more balance. I think the number one thing that was different here, and some of it is down to this is Stephen Glass's mentality, I think. Some of it's down to the fact that you were coming back from another break and you learned from what you tried to do last time. 3-4-3 is very intricate. It needs time. It needs time to gel. You have to put things together and play to develop a rhythm. Because if it's out of rhythm, it looks really poor. 4-3-3, and the way this was set up, is very common. It's very easy. It's very easy to slip into. You can add layers to it as you go, but it's got more balance built into it. You can not be sharp, but still have the balance you need to be effective. And that's what it felt like here. Remedi sitting behind Heinemann and Rossetto for the most part. Everybody had some help. Everybody had cover. It just flowed better for a team that's still finding its feet.
All right, now, John, let's talk about this first goal, right? This first goal by Pitti. It's obviously a connection between Remedi and Pitti, but one of the most interesting aspects is that Alistair Johnson, right, this young kid for Nashville, has a great breakaway. He is squared up right there. I believe it was with Walks, but he's coming in. He has a one-on-one pretty much with Guzan. Guzan makes a great save, times that perfectly. We take the ball, we recycle it a bit, and then it comes to the feet of Remedi, and then he picks out Pitti on a run, and obviously bing, bang, boom. You know, Zimmerman's caught in a weird spot, can't really control or block that ball, and Pitti finishes with the left foot. What were your thoughts about Remedi in the midfield and that connection, and especially that first goal?
Yeah, that ball from Eric Remedi, the big switch going from one end to the other as we were watching. It was one of the pretty moments that we saw in the match. And then Pitti settles it down quickly and then makes just a subtle little move, and Walker Zimmerman just kind of bypassed him. It was like the fighter planes in Top Gun, where Maverick hit the brakes and the other plane just went right on by. So you see Zimmerman just go past Pitti, cuts it inside, and just then the poke inside for that first goal. So no, it was thing of beauty from beginning to end. Guzan acting quickly, spotting the outlet, getting it eventually to Remedi over, and before you knew it, it was in the back of the net 1-0.
Right, and so these midfielders obviously had a little bit more time to search things out, pick their heads up, find open plays. As we saw it with Rossetto, we saw it with Remedi. They had the ability to pick their heads up, find that pass. There were a lot of chances that were created off of that. Obviously, Bello's ability to get wide also helped with a little bit of this sort of tactician, right? So the second goal, which we'll obviously get into a little bit later, but I do want to relate this back to the midfield and then also with those wingers getting wide, was that Bello was pushing up. I believe it was a Calm he was pressing, got the ball from a Calm, gave it to Pitti. Pitti passed it out wide to Mo Adams, and then we have that glorious goal, which again, like I said, we'll get to later. But do we feel like that ability for those wingers to get out wide and create a lot of space for those midfielders helped? And do we see that being something that you used possibly against Miami?
Yeah, Miami's going to be interesting because what they started doing in their last match was dropping their line of confrontation a little bit. They're not pressing up high quite as much, but they're dropping to midfield and then pressing. They want to bring you to midfield, force you to go backwards, and then they all step up high. You've got to find the space that they're going to give you, and there's not going to be a lot of it. I think the big switches will be where that space is, not the long ball like Remedi sent to Pitti, but the big switches left to right, right to left, because Miami condenses the field. They kind of split it in half, and you've got that opposite flank to use. Bello becomes critical in a game like this. Brooks Lennon becomes critical in a game like this, to stretch the field wide. That's going to create more space for your central midfielders to operate in. Miami, once you break that pressure, they're not great defensively. They haven't had a clean sheet all season. Their defense is best served when they're pressing you, but they found that they're better off to not just go chase everything, not play a San Jose Red Bulls kind of press, because they don't have the legs for it. You know, that you look at their numbers, they haven't scored a goal after the 60th minute. They've conceded 6 after the 60th minute. They've had problems running out of gas. So they've backed off their pressure, and they try to force you to play backwards. You get to midfield, there's nowhere to go. You go backwards, then they start to amp it up. Then they step up and press. That's where Atlanta has to look for that opportunity. Okay, you're going to get forced back for a second. That's fine. You draw them out, hit the big switch. Bello's got to be key going forward like he was in this one. Lennon has got to be good going forward if he's playing right back especially, which is a possibility with Franco Escobar suspended. But you've also got to look for those wingers up high at times to go not just right to left, left to right, but long diagonal to Pitti especially, because he will hang out wide and wait for the play to kind of come to him at times. If your player's on the right side, and this is going to be Lennon probably, maybe Gallagher, maybe Walks, if they can hit that big switch to Pitti out wide and get him 1v1 with a defender, you like your chances.
Right. Now, I know that we started in the midfield, but I do want to take a step back and talk about defensively, because there is going to be a lot of changes, like you said, in our back line. Defensively, this game, I feel like there's some parts that we could definitely clean up. It's a back four that hasn't played with each other for very long, so it's again like learning that back line, learning those partnerships, learning when to go forward, when to not go forward. Obviously, they protected Bello a little bit because we are a little bit weak on that left side, with Bello being so young and not necessarily keyed in defensively quite yet. But I do think, let's start with Bello. I think it was a great game for Bello. Obviously, full 90, he's played in a very, very long time. He was energetic, he was fresh, he was creative. There were times I still needed him to get back a little bit sooner, but overall, I thought it was a gleaming performance for the youngster. John, what were your thoughts on Bello for the game?
I'm right there with you. I thought it was a great performance by Bello, and Brad Guzan after the match said, after the match, he told George, this is the type of performance you need to build on. We know he's athletic. We know he's got the ability, got the talent, needs to develop the understanding of the game, how to manage certain situations that he sees. He said, Brad, about George, said, tonight was close to a complete performance for him. This is the kind of stuff from Bello that you build on, and we all got to see that last time out against Nashville.
Yeah. And additionally, outside of just Bello, Walks, which has been a sub primarily from when he's come back and joined the team since obviously his first year with us, he's grown a lot. This is something that Guzan also said about Walks, is that he's really matured as a player. He's really stepped up to the plate, played a full 90, which I'm assuming he wasn't prepared to do, honestly, but he gave a great performance. There were times that he came back and defensively was just a stout. Like, he really had some great great towaways on that back line. There's one in particular breakout that I can't remember which Nashville player it was, but he ran back, poked that out. It was a great defensive play to make that more of like a 2-on-1 instead of a 1-on-1. But again, great performance from Walks. I'm thinking primarily we're going to see him and Miles again on that back line, obviously because Meza is injured. Now, with that aspect, with how well Walks has been doing, obviously in this last game, and with the new Meza injury, how do we see us moving forward with that? Is there going to be a blow because of the lack of, I want to say, veteranness on the back line, or do we think we should still be able to hold the fort?
I think Meza's a player who's maybe a little misunderstood here, and some of it's because he came in and technically was involved in the LGP trade when that happened. He goes to Tijuana, Meza comes here. Is it a trade? Is it a transfer? Is it just coincidence? I don't know. But he's linked to LGP. He's not an LGP kind of player. He's much more of a Michael Parkhurst kind of player, an organizer, that veteran presence, a calming presence. One thing that he does that you don't really have out of Walks or Robinson that you're going to need is going back to something I said just a minute ago, that big switch, that long diagonal that we did see from LGP. That's something we see a lot from Fernando Meza. He's led the team in longer passes, in passes 25 yards or longer in the first half that he played. He was 20 of 22. I mean, he's very accurate with those. You're going to need Walks or Robinson to open their game up a little bit, or Remedi, which we did see on the goal. You need more of that from him. Or you could see Jeff Larentowicz get into the mix because we know what his long passing game can be. Against Miami, I think those big switches are going to be really key. we're waiting on an update on Meza. I think it's a safe bet you're not going to see him tomorrow. How long, we don't know. Robinson couldn't go 90 on Saturday. Is he going to be able to go 90 now? That's maybe a little optimistic, but we don't know for sure. That's the hard thing about the schedule and this time right now, because you're playing a lot of games in a short period of time. You've got to have people ready to step up. Anton Walkes absolutely did that. Not expected to start. He wasn't expected to be a starter at the beginning of the season either. He had the injuries to Robinson and then Escobar, and Walkes was good early. He was even better in this one. I think he's a regular for now, and you find a spot for him, whether it's right back because Escobar's out, which is where he played in 2017 for this team, or center back where we've seen him this season. He's going to be important tomorrow night.
Yeah. Do you think the speed of having both Miles and Walkes on that back line is an advantage for us, John?
No question. And I think that when you look at the front the front four that you would envision for Inter Miami, Pellegrini, Carranza, Morgan off the right, and Pizarro in behind, I think that you're going to need to have those individuals that can match what you've seen. If anybody got the chance to see what was going on against Orlando for Inter Miami, and I'll file this away as another separate column, but the whole 90 minutes down in South Florida in these conditions. So I think that depth turns into an issue. And I think that managing yourself in these conditions is going to be an issue. But, yeah, I think that to match what you've seen with Carranza, Pellegrini, and Pizarro, I think that you're going to need that back there to match it. And I think that Bello will be up for the challenge there. Walkes will be there for the challenge. Miles will be there, hopefully, to what extent we don't know. But having those three guys back there to counteract what we've seen from Inter Miami, I think will be big.
Yeah. Now, this sort of leads me into the talk about the man of the match, honestly, and we haven't really talked a lot about him. Obviously, came out of this game on a high. Is on everybody's lips right now. Talking points for MLS, for the Extra Time Radio. They talk about South American Player of the Year, fully showing his sort of DP status now, under the weight of Frank de Boer, whatever that means. Do we think this is, or that match was, a coming out party for the Pity Martinez that we've been dying to see? Do we finally feel like he's free now in the position that he is under Stephen Glass, obviously within the structure on the field, that he's finally free to sort of play the way that he's always played and wants to play?
See, I don't think that's fair to Frank de Boer, to be honest. He played really well last season, and Pitty's played out wide. He's also played as a number 10 here in Atlanta, which is the same he played for River Plate. I think there's a bit of a narrative going around right now that he never played centrally for River Plate, and it's just not true. Pitty can play any of those spots, just like Barco can play those spots. It's a pretty fluid game these days, so players are going to play multiple positions in a setup. They have to be flexible, and Pitty's one of those guys. I thought the second half of last year he was really good, and you look at his chance creation late last season, was outstanding, one of the best in the league. You look at it this year, it's the same. He's been really good this year. I thought he was good second half of last year, really good early this season. The Orlando tournament, it's not Pitty's fault. I mean, look at what he did in the Red Bulls game. He played really, really well. The second game took a lot out of everybody, and the third game was bad for 45 minutes, as bad as you could possibly see. And I think it obviously showed that there were some things that were wrong. But you look at the numbers for Pitty, he's creating, so far this season, over 5 shot attempts per 90 minutes. That's himself and 4 others. That's 5th highest in Major League Soccer. And he's creating those from the run of play primarily. A lot of others are creating them from set pieces. He's doing it from the run of play. A lot of passes he's creating these opportunities. He's earning a lot of fouls in dangerous spots. 6 times he's earned fouls that have led to free kicks on goal. He's 7th in the league in touches in the final third. And that's the biggest difference we saw. He's better the further up the field he is. And when the 3-4-3 worked early this season, it was Barco who was dropping more to be the pseudo 8. Pitty was staying up higher. When you go back and look at the Motagua game at Kennesaw, for example, Pitty and Joseph were just completely in sync up high on the field. Barco was the one who was dropping a little bit deeper. In this game, Pitti stayed up high. He didn't come back to get involved in the build-up play. When he dropped back, it was for defensive purposes, and he was very good in that phase too. He was confident. He had a point to prove. I think he felt some pressure. I think everybody in the team felt some pressure, and that's why you got the performances you did. But Pitti was outstanding. I just don't think it's like we haven't seen it before. I think we have, and hopefully you continue to see it at this level even more because somebody's got to score goals without Josef Martinez.
Exactly. And you hit on it, Jason, but this is something I want to get to you with, John. Confidence. Yeah. He obviously had a little bit tougher of a year at the beginning of last year. And we saw that transition as toward the end of last year. You felt like it was coming back. Obviously, beginning of this year, like Jason said, he was doing really well. But do we feel like that, first off, that second goal is pure confidence? I don't know anybody that doesn't hit that doesn't have a small inkling in the back of their mind. It's like, maybe I shouldn't. And that was full steam. I'm going to take a swing at this. I've got this. Put the team on the back of my shoulders, run around and fist pump the air type of confidence. I mean, it was ecstatic to see. It was great to see from him. Sort of was a punching through moment. Do we feel like now with this sort of confidence off this last win, his 2-goal performance at the last match, that we can expect to see some wonderful things out of Pitti?
Well, I know, obviously, if you ask Pitti, he would say that yes. The answer is, I want to continue to be in this way. But, I mean, let's go back to the beginning of last year when Pitti Martinez came to Atlanta United. He did not have a break in his action from his previous stop. And so he's coming in, he's trying to integrate immediately, and there were points where he was just flat out gassed. And so that's going to show up on your appearance on the pitch, no matter how hard you're grinding. And that's just how it was. There were points of the season last year where he was absolutely tired. And then when you get those rest breaks, you get acclimated, you get integrated, you see what we saw in the latter parts of last season. And then you get the continuation of that, the comfort level of being here for the beginning of a season with Atlanta United. And to me, I look at it as the continuing acclimation of him to what is going on here in MLS and with Atlanta United. So if you want to look at it as the continuation or growth curve progression, whatever words you want to use, I think that it's great to see these kinds of things from Pitti. Pitti wants to see these kinds of things from Pitti. So I think that it's just part and parcel to the progression that everyone would like to see, especially the guy wearing the number 10.
Exactly. And as we move into the game with Inter Miami, there's going to be a lot of questions on the plate. When we had originally talked about Nashville, we talked about how they were a defensive-minded team. They normally sit back. They normally don't press. What we saw from Nashville when we played them, obviously, was a sort of a different note. I thought when we played against Nashville that they were a little bit more so on the front foot. They were going after it. They weren't sitting back as much. They still had they were still very loaded as far as our final 18, but overall it felt like they were pressing a bit more than I'm used to seeing Nashville play, and I thought that was a good change and a good test for Atlanta United, obviously, in our first match. Jason, as you were saying, Inter, they like to pull you in and then overtake you. It's a lot of them waiting for turnovers or looking to change the ball in midfield and strike really quickly. Do we see Atlanta United sort of falling for that narrative where we're being pulled into, obviously since we like possession play, pulled into the midfield, being stripped of the ball and seeing a quick turn and a quick chance for Inter Miami?
You'll see that happen, but Atlanta's not going to change the way that they play. I mean, it's something that Atlanta United fans, I think, have to get used to and not overreact to. You're going to see mistakes happen, like we saw with Columbus last night, Abubakar Keita with a bad giveaway in a bad spot. Columbus isn't going to change who they are because of one bad pass. If Atlanta has it, and they had a couple happen in this match as well, if you have a bad pass, you're not going to all of a sudden get scared and just blast it long and go fight for rebounds. You're still going to play. The best teams that control games don't get scared by one slip-up. Miami will create some slip-ups. They're pretty dangerous up top with the way that they pressure because it's unpredictable. Rodolfo Pizarro can pop up centrally. He can pop up out wide. Morgan can come inside. You've got outside backs who are aggressive. Figal has moved from center back to right back right now. Very aggressive. It's opened his game up a little bit. Reyes will step up high. We know Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez will step up high. On the left side, either Ben Sweat or Mikey Ambrose, they'll step up. You've got to get past Miami's first line of pressure. And however you do that, and I think you're going to have to mix it up. If you're predictable, it makes it easier for them. If you go over the top at times to try to keep them a little honest, keep them from stepping up high, that can be effective. If you also play through, and with Remedi and, hold on a second.
Yep, okay.
Wait, what?
Oh, that's coming. I think it's coming. There we go. Announcement, Atlanta United, Fernando Meza, out 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury. That's from the game we saw on Saturday. Really couldn't tell when it happened.
I did a replay almost immediately after, he went down, and there was nothing that you could see in that video.
Yeah, there was a spot earlier than that, and I think it could have been frustration, but he could have felt something in his knee where he was on the ground and kind of slammed his hand into the ground after the play was over. I don't know if that was knee or not. It was about 5 or so minutes before. There wasn't an obvious issue, and the fact that it's a knee injury and it's 2 to 3 weeks is a good sign. That's nowhere near as bad as it could have been. It's very bad for this stretch of games because that's going to take him out of this stretch of games where you have a lot of games in a short period of time. But this is where I think Stephen Glass, having a relationship with George Campbell from last season with Atlanta United 2, understanding and trusting Lawrence Wyke from Atlanta United 2 last season, he's got two guys that he knows what they're going to give you. He knows what he can ask them to do and what he can't ask them to do. To go along with Jeff Larentowicz, who can drop into the back line, to go along with Anton Walks, who's been really good this season, and you've got to manage Miles Robinson's minutes and get him up to full fitness. Right. Stephen Glass, knowing Campbell and knowing Wyke, will be much more helpful than maybe it would have been if Frank DeBoer was still in charge, because he doesn't know those guys the same way. He didn't have a whole season with them like Glassy did last year. So they're going to become important. We've talked about it. I kind of wondered if Wyke or Campbell, one of them might go back to the twos because they're having center back issues. I don't think you can afford to do that right now. Not with Meza out for, it appears, the next 5 games.
Right. Well, then let's talk about this as far as who we possibly see or what we see Atlanta United doing defensively against Inter. So let's go ahead and start just getting into the lineup. Obviously, Meza's out, right? So 2 to 3 weeks, like you just said. Yep. And initial thoughts, and I'm assuming most thoughts right now is you're going to see us starting back, at least 2 back of both Miles and Walks, right? The 2 fast-footed guys. Possibly
it depends on Miles. It just depends on Miles. There's 2 things that can come into this. It depends on what Miles can give you, if he can go 90 or if he can go more than 45 and you want to start him. And it depends on if you decide Walks at right back gives you the most balance, because you don't have Escobar for this one either. So you've got to look at Walks or Lennon, potentially Gallagher at right back. So it's which combination is going to give you the best fit.
So who did you guys have for your starting lineup? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming we're still going to go with a 4-3-3.
Yeah, I think the shape's going to stay the same. I'm leaning to Larentowicz at center back. I'm leaning to Lennon staying on the right wing, and I'm leaning to Walks at right back. If Robinson can't go, Walks comes inside, and it's Larentowicz and Walks with Lennon at right back. Right wing, I would go to Jake Mulroney and have his speed as an option there. Again, that's expecting Jurgen Damm is not ready to factor in yet, since he didn't make the 8 or 20 on Saturday. I'm expecting he's not going to be able to start here. That's a big step. Usually he's going to be on the bench first, then maybe he can start a game or 2 after. So Mulroney would give you good speed in that option. Manuel Castro would be the other option as well. He's played a ton of right wing in his career. I kind of like the idea of Mulroney's pace when you're looking for that big switch over the top.
Yeah. John, who did you have?
I had about 6 different guys, to be perfectly honest, because of all of the question marks that we had, and it was some combination of Bello walks Jeff, Lennon, and Miles. So I will stipulate to what Jason said previously with a bunch of different guys not knowing the health and the minutes that can go with certain individuals.
Okay. I actually went for the understanding on both minutes of games played, so who's played most minutes, and understanding of sort of like what that possibly means for endurance. So I actually went Bello on left wing, or left back, Walks, Miles on the center, and then I actually have Gallagher on the right. Because I still wanted...
It could be. He hasn't played a ton of right back. That's the only thing I would caution. He's played it for Atlanta United too. He played far more as a wing back in a 3 center back setup than a line of 4 playing right back. He did play that, so he does have experience there, but it's his probably least experienced position.
Okay.
It can happen. I'm not completely against it. I think he's got the game for it. But you've got other guys who have more experience that might be a little bit better fit. Lawrence Wyke has experience as a right back as well, and he's another wild card option there.
Right. He definitely is. All right, so then let's just go ahead and continue this talk about possible lineup. Obviously, going into the midfield, if we talk for the midfield 3, I'm assuming it's a repeat of our game on Saturday with Rossetto, Hyndman, and Remedi. Yep. Obviously, Remedi in there for defensive to hold up the back line, but also for that long diagonal as well. Because I feel like what we're going to have to deal with as well, from obviously the experience with Atlanta United with him, is LGP has that long diagonal. So we need to be very cautious and aware that I do feel like Miami is going to lob some over and take those runs from those wingers.
You would think so, but they haven't really figured out how to use LGP yet. He had about 50 less passes than he usually did for Atlanta United in the match against Orlando. It's game 1, but for LGP to only have 21 passes in a match, it's like, do you not understand what he can give you? Yeah. We'll see if that changes here. They're going to try to win the ball in midfield, so he's not going to have as many touches. And they're going to try to then play through when they do get those touches. He's going to try to play it out wide, especially to the left, because they do a lot down the flanks in their build-up. On the left side with the left back, either Sweat or Ambrose. On the right side, through Morgan a ton. So I know what you're saying, and I think it normally would be a big issue, but I don't think they're going to hit that long ball all that often. They're going to try to build up the play. Trapp and Ulloa get a ton of touches for them too. Right. I think the midfield, and this is, I guess, one of the biggest things that you just have to keep in mind right now. Guys are not going to be able to go 90 minutes and then 90 minutes 3 days later and then 90 minutes 4 days later and then 90 minutes again. You're going to have to see some switching. You're going to have to see some things change up. Could you see Mo Adams come in and get a start here? Absolutely. He was very good when he came on. If you decide you're good at center back, you could play Lorenowitz as that number 6. He's played it a ton. He can give you a shift there. You know what you're going to get. You've got options in the other 2 roles as well. If Barco's able to give you anything, he could fit into that number 10 role. You've got a lot of possibilities. And I think when we talk through lineups, you just have to remember that what we're talking about is assuming everybody is good. Right. We don't know that for sure, and there's just no way to know until we see the lineup come out. I think we kind of understand what the shape's going to look like, but personnel, there could be factors that we just don't know.
Right. Now, John, do you agree with sort of still having Remedi and Rossetto and Hyndman start, since we're coming off this conversation of so many minutes played, obviously resting where it's needed, or do you see Mo Adams slotting into this? What are your thoughts?
I'll go with choice D, all the above, from what you were saying, Kelly. But no, I think off the top, it's Remedi, Rossetto, Hyndman. But once again, I will show you. Here's what it looks like in trying to figure out what possibly could be. And so you see all the names and all the different combinations.
It's the number 10, correct?
No, okay. I don't have Lennon. I don't have Lennon as my number.
Lennon as the 10. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So you see, Pitti and Lennon, opposite sides. Pitti and Lennon, opposite sides.
So, and he's probably going to play right back here anyway, so it's all good.
There you go. So, I have 2 separate notations as to what it possibly could look like and all the other guys at the back. So,
okay.
So I'll stipulate to choice D, all the above, but yes.
Okay, so then here comes my question, because I think this is a big question and something that we actually didn't talk about when we're recapping against Nashville. Adam, John, Obviously, statistically very ineffective as the role of striker, and we obviously saw when Kubo came on, very energetic, had a lot of chances, created a chance, obviously, that ended up becoming a goal for Pity. Do we see Kubo actually be able to start the match against?
Depends on fitness. Totally depends on fitness. I think it's unfair to say that John was ineffective. He doesn't fit the way this team plays for 90 minutes.
I said statistically ineffective.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, like, he was brought here to be a second half change of pace kind of forward. You know, you're chasing a game or you're protecting a lead. You can get more direct with him. You're playing differently with him. The way this team plays over 90 minutes, he's not as good of a fit. I think he could give you a little bit more with a little more play. Like if you involved him a little bit more in the build-up, I think he's a better forward who can combine with others and maybe he gets credit for. But he doesn't fit. He hasn't built those relationships up. You saw immediately when Kubo came on, he's on the same wavelength with guys like Pity and Rossetto. He knows how they want to play. I think John's still figuring that out. So ultimately, Kubo will start, and he will be the guy. And I think he'll be a very good fit for this group. I don't know if that's tomorrow. It's all down to how much Kubo can give you. I don't think he can play 90. But have you decided that you'd rather have him go 60 and see where you're at, or would you rather have John start and have Kubo come on to finish it? I kind of lean that way unless Kubo can get you pretty deep into the second half.
Right. It'll be very interesting for sure. John, do you see Kubo as Jason's second option is coming on a little later? Kind of like that whole speed effect that we were talking about with Dom and Mulroney as power subs.
Yeah, I had John starting and Kubo coming in and playing more minutes, getting the 10 last time. I'm looking at probably 20 to 25, maybe even 30, just to get his fitness and up to full song. But yeah, I mean, John early on going up against the back line, going up against LGP on set pieces and things like that, having that taller physical presence.
Right.
And, that's specifically what I was thinking, having John starting and having Kubo playing more minutes than he did last time, but still coming in off the bench as a sub. Right.
Now, that's a great point that you made because obviously in the game versus Orlando, defensively, they have LGP, so they have the defender that they obviously wanted to get before the MLS's back tournament, but still defensively they are a little bit of a question. Orlando didn't mark on, or not Orlando, sorry. Orlando did not mark on some of the Inter Miami goals that they had. So there, as far as offensively, there are things that I feel like Atlanta will combine well and be able to prevent as far as Inter Miami forwards that come into our 18. But I do think in the final thirds for ours offensively, I think Inter Miami is still a question. LGP has played with this team, but again, like Jason said, they don't really know how to use him. He is a strong force, but if he's the only one that's marking or making pressure towards that ball, there's got to be that interchange between the rest of the back line to make that pressure. Do we see Inter Miami being a stronger force defensively? Obviously, they got another game under their belt with LGP, or do we see them sort of still having this sort of question above their head defensively?
They've got questions. They just don't have a solid defensive group. Nashville's far better defensively than Miami is. Miami has to try to defend higher up the field because their back line's not good enough. LGP and Reyes, your two center backs, are both very aggressive and will get caught out. That's a bad pairing. We'll see how it works. Figal moving over to right back. He had played center back before LGP. Not a traditional right back. He's not going to get forward a ton, which is okay. I think they'd probably be better off with him in the center instead of Reyes. That's kind of how I'm feeling what I've seen. The left side, Ben Sweat gets forward well. Mikey Ambrose gets forward well. Sweat is a better defensive player, but I don't think he's a great left back either. And in the midfield, you're talking Will Trapp and Victor Ulloa, who are both very good on the ball. Neither one is great defensively. So once you get past that front four, and they do some pretty creative things with the way they defend up high, you can find opportunities. You can find space. And I think players like Rossetto and Pitti will be very important in those spaces and finding those spaces. And then a player like Mulraney possibly, or Lennon on that right side, and Bello making deep runs if he gets to start on the left side. Those guys can open the game up, but it's going to be down to Pitti and Rossetto, I think, to unlock things.
Right. And then you just talked, again, when we were talking about Pitti as far as his development on the field, sort of where he's been recently, he also tends to be a player that will get those calls as far as fouls. And we all know that LGP is a little bit quick to the jump sometimes. Do we see Reyes and LGP biting at the nips for LGP and us now having those set opportunities because we're getting fouls close to the 18-yard box? John, what are your thoughts?
No, I think that you have the opportunity to unlock stuff there. And if you have Rossetto driving and PT driving and trying to create and cutting inside and things like that, then you're going to have Figal on his heels and Reyes on his heels and LGP on his heels and everybody trying to retreat. And to Jason's point that he made earlier, as I was looking at my 37 guys that were trying to squeeze into I thought that you could see speed coming from a Bello if he starts down the left-hand side, going up against a Figal and a Reyes. The same with Pitti and Rossetto working that left-hand side, and then whatever we saw on the right-hand side going up against Ambrose and Sweat. So I think that if you, once again, you get past those first four, I think that your speed can pay off all night long against those other guys chasing after, a keeper in Robles who has shown that he's not the same Luis Robles that we've known from his time at Red Bulls. And so I think that there's a lot of questions if you get past that back four with that final seven. And I think that the speed, regardless of where it comes from, can take advantage of what we've seen against Inter Miami. And really my question from Inter Miami against Orlando was how much of what Inter Miami did comes from the MLS's back hangover from Orlando City? How much of that was them doing well, and how much of it was Orlando City still trying to get back into the swing of things for a normal schedule and a normal season?
I disagree. You're taking away from a good performance in Miami where they made some changes. Orlando scored 2 goals. Orlando was good in this game.
They had some really good goals, actually.
Yeah, I thought Orlando was good. I thought Miami was better, and I think some of the things that they did allowed them to be better. It's something that they talked about in their media availability this week. Rodolfo Pizarro talked about how they changed what they did from the MLS's back tournament, what they did early. They tried to press really high. They didn't have the legs for it. Pizarro said, I think we changed a little the pressure, not as high as we'd been doing in other games. We pressed in the middle block. That gave us more air when it came to having the ball. We were fresher when attacking. Personally, talking about Diego Alonso, the manager, he asked me to let go of the left, right, or in the middle so that we could rotate positions. We were rotating, but always occupying the position. So the two things he's talking about there, he's talking about they drop the pressure to midfield. If you go back and watch, it looks like they pick up pressure right at the midfield stripe. And then when they force you backwards, they keep going. The other thing is that front three, and this is what gave Orlando problems, was it wasn't static with Pellegrini on the left, Pizarro as a number 10, Morgan on the right. They played. They went and found the game. Sometimes all three would be on the same side. Sometimes they would interchange. Sometimes two would be on one side, one would be on the opposite. It was very, very fluid around Julian Carranza, the forward, who had a great match. So
he had a great match, yes.
The front four is really strong for them, and it's very interchangeable. That worries me from Atlanta's defensive perspective because at times Atlanta's defensive communication was lacking, and it's something that has to change. That might be why I'm kind of leaning to Lorenowitz as a center back here to organize, because I think that's going to be critical with Miami swapping positions so easily.
Yeah. That was something that I did want to hit on, was just the ability for Carranza to get into open spaces or to make the ability to get a goal seemingly out of nothing, right? That header that was beautiful, lobbed over. Same with the strike earlier. But there are things that Orlando did that, like I said, Atlanta normally don't do, like not marking Pizarro as he's open in the box, slotting that goal in. But there are things that, defensively, Inter Miami also did that Atlanta United can exploit. So this is sort of where I want to transition into us talking about the sort of the key takeaways that we should see in this match. What are maybe one or two things that Atlanta United really needs to focus on in order to come out of Miami with the 3 points? John? It's a loaded question. I'm sorry, but I feel like it would be it's a good look at how differently each person would see a takeaway for this match and what we think Atlanta should do or will need to focus on in order to get the 3 points.
Well, I want to focus on the back and go forward. I think that with Fernando Meza not being in the lineup, I think that having that veteran presence back there as that traffic cop, and I think that having someone like a Jeff Larentowicz on the back line will help out in that regard because of what we've been discussing with that front four of Inter Miami that wants to sit there, find the open space, and sit there and drive everybody crazy with what they're capable of doing offensively. I mean, we've seen it with all four of them, whether it was in that cameo in MLS's back or in the match against Orlando. So I want to focus on defensive stability first, and then having that solid back line creating opportunities for the guys that we know that can do it up top. So as long as you can make that wall and frustrate Inter Miami and have those four guys that we know that can do the damage, if you can clamp down on that and then create opportunities going the other way, I think that that's where you can take advantage of those other six and Robles in net for Inter Miami. So for me, it's key work at the back to create opportunities in transition for Atlanta United going the other way.
For me, I think it's speed at the back. I do think communication is something that obviously is a huge point as well, but I do think having the ability to have speed in the back is really going to help us, especially with the interchangeability of the front four. I think as well, our ability to split the middle apart and sort of go up the wings and really exploit those spaces out on the wings with speed and with crosses in and things of that nature. I feel like Atlanta can really capitalize on their ability to create in the final third by coming in from the outside. Jason, what are your thoughts and your key takeaways on how Atlanta United can come away with 3 points?
Win the 1v1 battles. Miami was really poor against the dribble against Orlando, and Orlando's got some great dribblers in Pereira and Nani, but Atlanta is one of the best teams in the league on the dribble. Pitti, if Barco plays, Josetu is very good on the dribble. Hindman's very underrated on the dribble. Bello and Lennon are both very successful on the dribble. In that Orlando game... Sorry?
Remedi as well.
Yeah, to a degree. He's a little different. He's not really progressing it quite as far on the dribble, but he can lose a player to then hit a pass for sure. I think Pitti and Lennon can do it to create opportunities a little bit higher up the field. 1 of 17 successfully defending dribbles in that last match. Take people 1v1 as much as you possibly can. Don't let the middle two hurt you, same as Nashville. Don't let Trapp and Ulloa get on the ball a ton. You've got to break that up. Make them play through Ben Sweat. Make them try to play through Figal going forward at right back, which he's not comfortable doing. Get them into a situation where they've just got Lewis Morgan pumping in crosses all day, because he will. He put in 10 in the last game. He sometimes turns into what we'd see Julian Gressel when he got frustrated at times in previous years, where it's just hit a cross as early as possible and hope somebody gets to it. You're good if that's Miami's game plan. So you've got to break up the middle of the field for them when they build up. You've got to take people on 1v1, and the communication has to be better defensively to deal with those interchanges for their attack.
Okay, and then with all that in mind, what do you guys see the final score being? I'll start with you, John.
Well, okay, now, Jason, I need a ruling here.
Okay.
Because now, are we saying it here and reinforcing it in the show in the morning?
Well, we're not changing it.
Okay. I didn't know if we were revealing it now or revealing it for the Bailey Daily.
Wait for tomorrow. I didn't know if this is something that wanted to be deleted. I mean, I can give you mine.
We can give it. It's okay.
Yeah, we can give it.
John just doesn't know his. He's stalling.
No,
is what
I
he's
do
doing.
know mine. I do know mine.
So it's 2-1, right?
Wanting a reeling. No, it's not 2-1.
Okay. Then what is it?
Oh, it's 2-2.
Okay, so we come out with a tie. All right.
Okay. Why 2-2?
I actually have us getting all 3 points. I have us 2-1, surprisingly. I'm using John's
The
board.
Velvet Drive It Slipper Lock of the Week.
Yep.
I'm going 1-0 Atlanta.
Okay.
I think they get the goal, and I think they keep the clean sheet. I don't know if Miami can put together two good performances back-to-back just yet. I don't think they're nearly as deep as Atlanta. I do think it'll be sloppy at times from Atlanta's perspective, because I think there will be changes to the lineup, just managing minutes, and I think that'll create more disjointed play. But in the moments that matter, I think Atlanta is better than Miami. I think individually, 1v1 in a lot of parts of the field, Atlanta is a better team, and I think they'll win those 1v1 battles and find a goal and win 1-0.
Okay. All right. So where are you all watching the match tomorrow? Obviously, Jason, you're going to actually be in the stadium.
Not in Miami. We'll be in the stadium at Mercedes-Benz calling it from somewhere in the press box area, depending on how we get feeds and how everything's going to be set up. But, yeah, we'll be on the Atlanta United social media channels starting at 7 with the AT&T countdown to kickoff. And through crazy technological wizards, we'll be on the radio at 7 as well with our preview show, the Five Stripes Countdown. We're doing an hour of pregame tomorrow, 7 to 8. Game kicks off a little after 8, and we'll have the full-time report for an hour afterwards.
Awesome. That's incredible. John, what are you watching?
I'm down here in Office HD, much like I am tonight with the 5 matches that are up and running. I'll be watching that. I'll be watching here and keeping an eye on the Twitters, on the SDH account. So if anybody wants to go back and forth, and there'll be the questions and the normal comments that we have during the match. So I'll just be doing it from here in Office HD.
All right. I will be watching it from home because I am still in my self-quarantine. But it is what it is. I actually have I'll have to be watching it, staying off social as much as possible. I have a work thing I have to do at 9 p.m. and we go live, so I do not have the ability to get around it. So I do not want anyone to text me or tell me what is going on. I have it recorded. I am going to feign ignorance and watch it later in the evening. So I'm hoping it ends up being a good night overall, but I won't get to know that. So either way, I am Kelly Francis. You can find me at the Kelly Francis. John, where can they find you?
A bunch of different places at OSG Nelson on the Twitters, and through all of the Soccer Down Here accounts at Soccer Down Here on Twitter, and on YouTube, and on the app. If you haven't downloaded the app, as I try to dial it up quickly here, there it is, the SDH app, iOS and Android, so it's right there. So that's what we're up to. But yeah, OSG Nelson. So follow me on Twitter so I can follow more people, because I still have to clean out more numpties because I'm still at my arithmetic limit, or my algorithmic limit.
Oh, John.
I'm not like YouTube.
I'm hip.
I am. Occasionally.
No.
All right, no. Jason, where can they find you, and where can they watch everything that you're doing as far as pregame and postgame tomorrow?
Longshoe on all your social media channels. The day tomorrow is a long one. I will need lots of Red Bulls and or Coke Energies, or both. Show in the morning, 9 o'clock on the normal Soccer Down Here platforms. I'll be on the midday show at 1:20 with Andy and Randy on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app. 2 o'clock, we've got stoppage time. Myself, Mike Conti, on Facebook.com/929 The Game. Then we'll be on the Atlanta United social media channels starting at 7 o'clock for the AT&T countdown to kickoff. That's on their Facebook. That's on their Twitter. I believe it's on their YouTube as well. And then we'll also be on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app starting at 7 o'clock for Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff a little after 8. Full-time report a little after 10, after the final whistle. That'll go till about 11, and then I'll somehow get home and collapse.
So right around the time that you'll be doing your final report, I'll be watching the game.
So don't turn on the radio.
So I'm not turning on the radio. I'm going to make sure that I am not on that channel at all. Okay, well, thank you again so much for joining us. This was the run-up and the preview to Miami. The game is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Be sure to log on and watch. Tweet at us, talk with us. Obviously, we want to have a communication with you and hear your thoughts about the match. Next run-up, obviously, will be Friday at 7 p.m. as our preview for the next game. Thank you guys so much for joining. We will see you all on Friday.